Hey, good evening, everyone. Peace and blessings, peace and poetry, peace and art. It's so nice to be joining all of you this evening or this afternoon, depending on where you are. We have such a treat as we're going to be celebrating Rebecca Olander's book launch for Uncertain Acrobats. Yay! Yay, so nice to have you, Rebecca. And we have some friends and pressmates with us today, Kali Lightfoot, as well as a bunch of others in the Zoom. And we also are going to have Sara Sousa, which wasn't able to be here with us today, but she will be sending a video. So she'll be here for the reading too. As always, as everyone's coming in, just make sure you keep your mics muted for the respect of our readers. And there will be a chance for a Q&A at the end to answer all of your questions. If you have any questions throughout this reading, please put that down in the chat box below. And Gabriel Cleveland, our managing editor, and Tamara Akwati Coleman will be also getting all those things together. She's our new social media coordinator. They'll be preparing those questions for me for the end, and we'll be sure to get to your questions. Just to tell you how the evening's gonna go, we have two readers before our headliner, Rebecca, celebrating that book launch. We'll have Sara Sousa read first. I'll introduce her, and Gabe will Zoom her in from a disclosed pre-recorded location. Afterwards, we'll hear from Kali Lightfoot, who is also with us this evening. And then afterwards, we'll be hearing from Rebecca. If you hear any beautiful lines, which there are going to be many this evening, please put them down in the chat box to motivate ourselves and our other authors. If you have anything nice to say, you can also put that in the chat box. All right, so we will start. I am going to zap you out, Kali, and I'm also going to zap you out, Rebecca, for now. So Kali, bye-bye. And then Rebecca, actually, you know, I got my wand with me today. So now, Rebecca, I'll beam you out too. And now we are going to start with Sara Sousa. So Sara Sousa is the author of two poetry collections, Split the Crow and Church of Needles, which won the 2013 Red Mountain Poetry Prize. She also edited and transcribed The Diary of Esther Small, 1886, which won the New England Book Festival Award for Regional Literature. Her poems have appeared in the Massachusetts Review, Fugue, 14 Hills, the Southern Poetry Review, and Tuesday, an art project, among others. She is a recipient of honors from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, the Massachusetts Review, the Poetry Foundation, and both the New York and New England Book Festivals. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Sara Sousa.
Hello. It's good to be with all of you today. I'm Sara Sousa, the author of See the Wolf. Thank you for CavanKerry for organizing this reading, and to Becky for inviting me. And congratulations, Becky, on your new collection. And hello, Kali. It's nice to be reading with you as well. Someday maybe we can do this in person. I usually read from the first two sections of See the Wolf, which is an earlier in my life. I'm going to read only two poems from those two sections and concentrate on the third section, which is a little bit more current and is about the responsibilities, emotional and otherwise, of being a mother and a wife and a woman with those relationships. So I'll begin with the first poem, Self-Portrait with Mabel, Rose, Lillian, Fern, Mildred, B. My mother named me Little Old Lady. Named me Startle Easily, Little Flincher, Night Terrors with Spiders. I lived in a different century. I was born rural in a city of mills. My mother named me Place of Unreachable Hills. A temperance movement of one. I was sober as spring water. I was old, then I was older. My mother named me May Your Body Never Surprise You with Want. I was her easy pregnancy, asleep by 8, awake when convenient. I held the fetal position like a moral obligation. Her ribs were unmolested as a Victorian birdcage. They pried my soft bones like ancient pottery from between my mother's hips while she slept. An orphaned monkey, a baby of the 70s. I sucked the bright orange nipple of a sterilized glass bottle, held by some other woman, while my mother came to. She named me Mabel, Rose, Lillian, Fern, Mildred, V. Names I wear like tarnished jewelry, pinned to the inside of my bra for safekeeping. They take turns speaking through my mouth, choose my handbags, prefer flat shoes. They embody the word habit, placing a napkin atop my glass of water, one beneath to absorb the sweat. Carry a magnifying glass to read menus. With them, I'm always the youngest in the room, and nothing changes. They name me not yet born, but predict a natural birth. They ask, do you believe us? Does it help you to believe in us? This next poem was inspired by an exhibit at Mass MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art in North Adams, which is about an hour from where I live, so I go frequently. And it was on the, I believe, 200th anniversary of the extinction of the passenger pigeon. There was a little commemorative egg cup, which I didn't know was a tradition, but apparently it is, to have a commemorative trinket for a species extinction. You are not grass. The last wild passenger pigeon was named Buttons because the mother of the boy who shot it stuffed the bird and sewed black buttons for eyes. People with Ekbom syndrome imagine they're infested with mites. It's possible the entire Buttons family developed Ekbom, an aspect of which is folie à deux, madness between two, where a person in contact with the sufferer develops symptoms, as in an actual infestation. All wild things have kleptophobia, the fear of being stolen, as well as cleithrophobia, the fear of being trapped. I did, after the divorce and my mother began dating. Fear of being adopted by a man wearing slacks and old-fashioned shoes, who winked at me and promised to return my mother at a decent hour, whose accent was Southern, who pronounced his R's so long they became words in their own right, words at the ends of words, his R's like grappling hooks, like a crocodile purse with yellow eyes. Why is the fear of being trapped a clinical phobia, while the compulsion to slit and stuff a thing not listed in the DSM? Nature permanence is the healthy acceptance that you are not grass, but human. Beneficial if you suffer from hylophobia, fear of trees, not so helpful if you have Cotard delusion and know you're not only human, but a corpse. Related to Cotard is xenomelia, the feeling that one's limbs don't belong to the body. Chirophobia, fear of hands, and worse, apodomenophilia, where a person disowns the limbs, yearns to live life as an amputee. Why the insistence that an animal have black buttons, yellow marbles, keyholes for eyes, that its entrails be replaced with horsehair and rags, that the peppery dots swarming the blanket aren't mites? What are the chances that a man who flashes his teeth when he talks doesn't bite? To fear is animal. To create out of fear must be human. Slits to let the mites out. Steel shot like beautiful beadwork studding lavender breasts. Phantom limbs when real hands become too dangerous. Cats kill birds for me. In this house, when someone says she, he means me. I'm the only she in a house full of he's. When is she making dinner? Or she's in the bath, the garden, the car. She wants to be alone. If I'm within earshot, I give myself away. Cats kill birds. It's what they do. But I think my cats kill birds for me. They know I collect feathers into feather bouquets. They know I like a fan of wings. I don't like gore, so they won't leave that on the doorstep. Sometimes the feathers are still attached to some skin. When I'm in the kitchen, she's making dinner. Sounds of cooking. I give myself away. Cats kill, I know. I especially like the under feathers birds don't display and don't drop with ease. the pure white feathers at a chickadee's throat, the tiny, yellow-tipped head feathers of goldfinch. The cats rub against the screened door with mouths full of bird, muffled meowing. I let my cats kill for me. They think I'm the indoor cat, lap cat, declawed. They mistake the time I spend mesmerized by bird feeder goings-on for longing. I know my cats kill birds for me, because last winter I found a finch on bluish snow, dead of natural causes, wings outstretched, an image someone might tattoo across a shoulder blade. I watched from the window, but didn't make a move to move her stiff body. It was probably my window that killed her. The cats saw me see her. They knew I could have had her. Took them 3 days to disappear her. No feathers for me. My study. I just happen to be sitting in my study right now. I have a room of my own and call it a study. A girl my son invites over asks, chirpy and eager to please, "What are you studying?" Asks, "What are those woody-stemmed flowers I'm arranging in a vase?" Heavy, perfumed purple clusters. It's May. She just moved up from Florida. Doesn't know the names of our birds either. My son points out that he doesn't know the names for most of the flowers in my garden, and he's from here. The two of them talk about Cuban jazz, which my son also knows nothing about, but his interest in this sweet girl extends to her mother's ancestry, her father's taste in music. This girl who really is sweet and eager to please, who herself studies Mandarin and animal husbandry, has a no-nonsense way about her, a confident stride asking me what I study, and I can't say everything, can I? Can't launch into my new interest in Ogham, the design of Vita Sackville West's gardens, my odd project, taking daily photos of the town's events chalkboard as potluck supper after potluck supper is erased and replaced or blurred by rain. How I don't so much study in my study as struggle to hold too many things. Make rope by braiding green bark strips, then use it to drag a pebble, like a 2-ton piece of shale, an inch. How I sometimes imagine others struggling with me. She's not the type of girl to roll eyes and mumble intense or deep under her breath, out of earshot, or even in her own secret thoughts. I don't think she would. That's why I like her. I might tell her, as I would tell a daughter, if I had one, about the woman who got clipped on the cheek by the fine edge of an eagle's wing as the eagle dove for a fish beside the boat she sat in. A neat slice, not much more than a paper cut. But she would have been killed if the eagle were a hair's breadth closer. A wing cut is a kind of baptism, which would lead me to driving on the Williamsburg Road at dusk the other night. I was in a Subaru, affording no blood sacrifice. Speeding toward me, a red-tailed hawk, level with my window. Muscular ghost of coal-lined eyes, markings like ruddy tornadoes touching down. The simultaneity was not effortless for me. Bluing dusk, a few sharp stars, my fantasy of the hawk entering through my open window with cutting wings. Do you sew? Imagine holding a row of stick pins between your pursed lips. Now swallow. Crush the beehives. Let's cry all night into a bowl, blue beige, the color of eggshell. But someone will interrupt. Someone will enter the room clinking 6 dirty glasses, line them up beside the sink, and turn to me, wanting to fill the curio cabinet in my chest with Hallmark figurines. The bowl should be shallow enough to measure cryfall. Or someone will sit down heavily at my feet with a sigh that says, It's fixable by me, and my doors will fly open against my will. Someone will wander in, crush the beehives and the nests, toss my broken glass collection, rearrange the plants by time of death. But I don't want to cry all night, and I don't want to waste time resting back my summer dusk, so quickly thinning from honey to dust. Fill the eggshell bowl with my personal ocean, already filled with someone else's keys, lighter, change. If I wash it, I want it, left alone on the kitchen counter. Space unto itself, of other people's stuff. The kitchen is dealt a last down thrust of sunlight through the window, shaft through my eye. I sit at the table, crying all over my bare arms like a 20-year-old. She over an emptiness to fill. I can't convince her. The emptiness is good. I'm going to read 2 more poems for time. Home movies. My baby's mouth is open in the video. My 1-month-old baby just introduced to the camera. His name said for the first time for an audience of my wider family in other states. His name said like a novelty, still strange to the tongue. And his birth date and birth weight announced. Someone is talking to him, and the camera focuses on his face as he kicks and fidgets on the changing table. Someone is saying, as someone always says in these home movies, say hi to Grammy, say hi to Auntie, say hi, say hi. And every time he opens his mouth so wide it's a black hole matching his wide black eyes. I can almost smell his milky breath. A high-pitched squeal like hi comes out, so someone keeps saying, say hi, back and forth it goes. My baby knows he's doing something right, getting the treat of soft voices and smiles. He's a genius. My voice in the background still thick with pregnancy hormones, half sarcastic with the sarcasm that came down through my father's side. And then the camera is on me. And yes, my face is still swollen from pregnancy. My father beside me, the only person in the family completely unfazed by the enormous camcorder. Then it's a birthday party. Someone is telling my 4-year-old to say hi to Grammy. Say hi to my grandmother who's been gone a decade now. For Lil, written on the side of the chunky black video. None of us share one cell with our former selves, my 18-year-old informs me as we watch. Someone saying, ask your mommy, then my 4-year-old yelling, mommy, as he leaves in search of me. But the camera stays put, scanning the room in a house we don't own anymore. The floor littered with wrapping paper, balloons risen to the ceiling. As the camera rests on them, people wave, say an overdone or awkward hi, then resume conversation, and the camera moves on. It finds me washing my baby in the kitchen sink, or this could be another day, I can't tell. I'm saying, he's just like his brother, then I shouldn't compare them. I do that too much. I'm telling my 4-year-old he can't go outside alone. His husky voice pleads, mommy. My tired voice says, no. I want to tell my younger self she shouldn't feel guilty because she'll end up feeling guilty every day about what she can or won't give. The restless camera turns from me as I apologize to my 4-year-old with a popsicle. Back in the living room, the sun has slid down the wall, but people are still deep in conversation, boring to watch at a remove of 15 years with bad audio. They talk on, demanding, it seems, we observe their lives, their obsolescence. I have to end it there. I've already gone on a little long. But thank you.
Oh man, that's actually the second time. Yeah, everyone, I see everyone giving the hands in the class. That's the second time I was able to hear Sarah Sousa zoomed in from somewhere else in a pre-recorded location. And so folks were talking about the tone and the voice. It's so milky and it's so inviting, right? So it's always a treat to hear her, and I wait until the time where she can actually be on one of these with us. So thank you. Her book is actually available. She was reading from See the Wolf, that beautiful, beautiful cover. It's available from our website. Thank you, Tamara, for putting it in the chat. Also, we are running a promotion for this reading. So if you use the promo code RHO1110, you can actually receive 25% off if you purchase 2 books or if you purchase 3 books. So why not purchase a lot? You're going to get the 25% discount. It's an excellent opportunity to have a bunch of great reading material. So speaking of great material and great people, here, yes, Rebecca, you are a promo code. Here is Kali. Kali, let me start you off with your bio. And I'm loving the lavender. I'm loving the plums. It's always such a vibe. It's so joyous. Let me read your bio, and you can unmute yourself, and then I'll give you your time. So Kali Lightfoot lives in Salem, Massachusetts. She worked as a teacher, wilderness ranger in Washington State, executive at Rhodes Scholar, and most recently as founding executive director of the National Resource Center for Osher Lifelong Learning Institutes. Lightfoot earned an MFA in writing from the Vermont College of Fine Arts in 2015. Her poetry has appeared in journals and anthologies and been nominated for Pushcart Prizes by Lavender Review and Poetry South, and Best of the Net by Star 82 Review. Kali received an honorable mention in the SFPA Speculative Poetry Contest, and she has written reviews of poetry books for Broadside Press, The Hopper, and Solstice. Everyone, please welcome Kali Lightfoot.
Thank you, Dimitri. That was great. I haven't heard that for a while. And my face is gonna flash in and out. It's gonna be sort of a little horror show moment here, but my lighting doesn't allow me to read my book if it's doing full face. So anyway, but I want to start off by thanking CavanKerry for selecting my manuscript all those months ago. It's been a real honor and a great fun adventure to bring this book out to the world. And I'm particularly
Kali, you've muted yourself.
My book hit the mute button. Metaphorical. I'm very happy to be reading with Becky, who is a classmate of mine from Vermont College and is also a pressmate of mine now. And I learned as I was reading her book that I'm the exact same age. Well, I'm not the same age now, but I was born the same year as her father was born. So it's sort of a bizarre overlap. My father died at the same age that her father died, although I was 25 when that happened. So there have been all these odd connections, and we do share the same birth date, November 15, along with Georgia O'Keeffe and Sam Waterston, whatever astrology you wish to make of that. But anyway, I'm going to start my first poem, and Oscar just joined me. Hopefully he's my cat, and hopefully he won't do anything bizarre. This is a poem called Three Seals. And it has an epigraph that says after, and here's Oscar, after Richie Hoffman, who wrote a poem called Three Cranes. And that's where I got the idea for this. There are 3 parts to this poem. Each part has a seal in it, and you will hopefully recognize that. The first part, December 28, 2012, 1:25 a.m., City Hall, Portland, Maine. 2 men stand on the top step, hold hands, parkas unzipped to show matching t-shirts. Love is love. Standing below them, we cheer, wave candles. They hold up their marriage license with its gold seal of the state of Maine. First state where citizen votes made gay marriage legal. The first couple steps down into hugs, Pelted by flowers, we watch for the next, prepare to cheer every pair, our voices husky with cold. 2. A summer morning, Boothbay Harbor. Today, in the quiet of purple dawn, a harbor seal treads water 10 feet from my solo canoe. Onyx eyes fixed on me. I stare back, watch nostril slits open, close, open. We breathe together a while. Part 3, November 12, 2016, Salem, Massachusetts. Our post office, built 1933, colonial revival architecture, so convincing I imagine mailmen in three-corner hats and breeches descend the graceful front stairs I climb to mail another donation I can't afford. This one for wilderness protection follows others for civil liberties, racial justice, reproductive rights. What to do on this day of feeling unheard, unseen? What to do but lick the envelope, seal my check inside, stop at the bronze slot and tip the flap, feel a puff of air as my hopes land with all the others there in the dark. And since it's fall, I thought I would read this poem. As you heard in my bio, I worked in the travel industry with Elder Hostel for about 20 years. And we were all about shoulder season. And shoulder season, I have discovered reading this poem to people, is not as common a term as I thought it was. And I was sitting at my desk one day thinking, just doing a life review and thinking, shoulder season, that is a really weird construction when you think about it. You know, shoulders, the shoulder season is the one between two popular seasons in travel. So shoulder seasons are when the hotels are cheaper and everything's cheaper if you're traveling, airplanes, everything. So I wrote this, and it's in pentameter, which is my only poem in the whole book in pentameter, but I don't read it in pentameter because that would be boring. But shoulder season, the weight of fall is in the clothes, a jacket or a light fleece, the thicker socks inside my shoes, these longer pants, capris gone, their summer glimpse of tan, bare feet on sand. I wait for scarlet maple trees to let their color flutter down, polka dot the street, and then stand denuded black against gray clouds. November's rain turns into winter's snow. Its quiet flakes, a mimicry of leaves in their descent. Afloat, not yet the barrier nor slickness underfoot, more visual than physical. They melt almost before they land. I hunch my back, lean into winds, feel the weight of early dark, oughts and shoulds, had betters, musts and obligations, all that slid unmet from naked summer shoulders. And the rest of these are sort of fan favorites that people have commented on as they've written back to me about my book after getting a copy this past spring. This is at Roslindale Station, which starts with an epigraph. After You Who Never Arrived by Rainer Maria Rilke. And I will say about this poem that it is a little snarky, and Rainer Maria Rilke's poem is not. So if you've read that poem, don't expect this one to sound like it. You who have never arrived in my arms, beloved, simply missed the train again. I believe instead that it was something I did or said or did not do or should have thought about if I had been smarter. But you say your old rusted piece of shit car just finally died and you were running late as usual. I am only one of the most recent 1,000 things that capture your attention, but not for long. So at this moment, and from this moment to the next moment that lives within it, I pledge to forgive myself from responsibility, not you, not yet, but myself. There will be no further thought, self-recrimination, or rehearsal of guilt as I relive the misery of that train chuffing into the station, beloved, and you not arriving in my arms. That was written to my ex-partner. We had different senses of time, which I find is typical of couples. One of the things that is very different in couples is often time sense, and money sense being another one. And this is probably the most popular poem in my whole book, which is the last poem. It's the most commented upon. It's called Star Stuff. The apples will not care that I didn't walk this morning, or never learned a second language, or read Proust, or was not a better supervisor. Knowing that atoms of my body come from stars that died 5 billion years ago and will be available 5 billion years from now in some other body or star or drop of water or apple lying in the orchard path is oddly comforting. Red and purple sunsets from the bluff above the pond, or Katahdin on a full moon night, or Silent Night sung by candlelight, or the smiles of my grandsons will be of no consequence to a drop of water. I will be as dust drifting on a solar wind beyond atmosphere and planet, untroubled and unconscious. This much loved, much worried life, atoms strewn across a galaxy of galaxies. Because of that relationship that I had with the person who had no sense of how long she could leave me waiting in places, she has Huntington's disease, as it turns out now. And I am close still to her son, who we consider to be my son-in-law. And she now lives out in California, and my son-in-law lives here in Beverly. And he was going to get the gene test for Huntington's disease, which he had a 50-50 chance of having. So this poem was, and the one after it, were about the day before and the day after the gene test. And I'm planning to read these two because I think the one after this will lead into Rebecca's reading because of the experiences that she and her father must have had. The day before is the first poem. What is this day like for you? The last day before you hear test results, gene mutation or not, disability or not, early death, or not, or not. The last day of 50% chances before the days of 100% or 0%. Did you have Eggs Benedict for breakfast? Are you thinking about tacos for lunch? Clutching this last day of mystery, or anxious for certainty, betting on yes or betting on no? We aren't talking about genes today, or the doctor's appointment, or the way your words slur sometimes. Your leg jerks. Does Huntington's or fear of it knot your muscles? Last days are most often lived backward, in memory of who we were and what our lives were like the day before Dad died, or the fire took our house, or I landed in detox. This time, we are living forward. This isn't just Tuesday. It's the Tuesday before we know. And we heard the results, and this is the day after the results. And it's a poem. The epigraph says a golden shovel, from a poem called Of Seasonality by Elizabeth Bradfield. It's very short, I will warn you. It is facile to think, no, not this again. It isn't this again. It is this brand new. I don't know who to be or how I am going to be anything but bumbling, wrong-footed, misweighted, sad on this path, familiar and yet so strange. Thank you.
Holly, thank you so much. It's always such a treat to hear you, and especially how you think. Just to hear you think through your work, and then through your sidebars throughout your work, is something I always appreciate, and I can't wait for the Q&A. I already
Thank
have
you.
some questions. Okay, so now let me actually use my other wand, and thank you. So now I'm going to beam you out. So bye. Oh wait, I actually pinned you, so you're still here. Okay, you're still here, so my spell didn't work. Okay, we'll try one more time. Bye. Okay, cool, that worked. And now we're bringing in Rebecca. I'm having too much fun with this. Hey, Rebecca. Okay, so you are the poet of the hour. Let me get through your bio and tell everyone how brilliant you are, and then you'll have the floor. So Rebecca Hart Olander is a promo code, as I said. So RHO1110. If you use that promo code, you can get Rebecca's book and our other two books of this evening for 25% off. But I digress. Rebecca Hart Olander grew up in Eastern Massachusetts between, oh man, I didn't study and I'm not going to say this right. So I'm going to do what I say for work. Gloucester. Thank you. You saved me the embarrassment. Gloucester and Boston. She earned a BA from Hampshire College, an MAT in English from Smith College, and an MFA in writing from Vermont College of Fine Arts. Her poetry, book reviews, and collaborative writing and collage have appeared widely in journals and anthologies. A chapbook, Dressing the Wounds, was released in 2019 by Dancing Girl Press. Rebecca lives in Western Massachusetts, where she teaches writing at Westfield State University and is the editor and director of Perugia Press, a nonprofit feminist press publishing first and second full-length books of poetry by women. Ladies, gentlemen, poets, audiences, people of our Zoom, here is Rebecca Hart Olander.
Hi, everyone. I am so moved to be here with all of you. I can see your names in the participants list, and I'm just really, really happy to see all of you here listening in from all different walks of my life. Thank you for walking with me. Also, CavanKerry Press, just to the whole team, thank you for walking with me for the journey of this book and bringing it to fruition, helping to bring it into the world. It is truly beautiful as an artifact, and I'm so proud that this is my book, and honored to be part of this press with people like Kali and Sarah. Your work was so amazing, both of you, to hear tonight. It was hard to pick, my favorite CavanKerry artists to read with, because there are so many good ones. So I already read with Cindy Veach earlier this season when her book came out to celebrate that. And yeah, Sarah is on my board of Prusia and is a dear friend, and Kali is my classmate from BCFA. So thank you both for sharing this evening with me. I'm gonna jump right in. I don't know, I might cut it short. I had like just under 20 minutes. I was gonna read 10 poems. The book is in 3 sections. It's gonna read a few from the first, a couple in the middle, and a couple from the end. This book is for my father. His name was Thomas Seymour Hart, and some of my family and his friends are here tonight. So a special hi to you. I see you out there, I feel you. The beginning of the book is really kind of centered around his life, and some of it, it's one book, so it can't say all, but his life and my life as it intersected with his. The middle section is about his dying in 2012, and roughly the third section is about my grief in the aftermath of that experience. I'm going to start by reading the proem, the pre-poem to the book, which is called Super Moon. And I'm reading this because my brother Patrick's here, for one, and he's the brother in the poem. After my father died, we published a book of his essays posthumously that he had finished. And it's called First You Run and Then You Walk. And they're beautiful essays about writers he admired, and running and coaching and navigating through cancer and more. So we had a book party for him, and this is the party that I was at, his book release party, that shows up in this poem. Super Moon. When full and coinciding with its closest advance on earth, light breaks into the living room, soaking the floor with moon. Bigger and brighter this perigee, washing out the Perseids. My brother walks toward me on the deck of a summer party, and trick of evening light, flick of what the heart wants, our father is there. We look, but we don't see. Then there's lunar apogee, the monthly swing away. They dangle, our gone beloveds, near as moons. The next piece I'm going to read is a form poem. It's a paradel, and it was created by Billy Collins, the poet, as kind of a parody, or not kind of, it was a parody of the villanelle. The form, you'll hear there are 4 stanzas, and each stanza has 6 lines. The first 2 repeat, the second 2 then repeat each other, and the last 2 lines, the 5th and 6th line, use every single word from those 2 original root lines in the stanza, but no other words than that. So that happens for 3 stanzas, and then the 4th stanza uses all the single words that are used in the poem, but no more than that. This is for the Adirondacks, a place that my father took me when I was young. Adirondack Paradel. I perform the summer rituals in my octopus bathing suit. I perform the summer rituals in my octopus bathing suit, wearing 6 of Grandpa's sun hats at a time for fun. Wearing 6 of Grandpa's sun hats at a time for fun. Wearing a suit of hats, I perform for fun, Grandpa's sun. Bathing in the time rituals octopus my summer at 6. My head a tower in terry cloth, I hold apples with my skirt for the deer. My head a tower in terry cloth, I hold apples with my skirt for the deer. Pregnant sounds of coins slivering in the soda machine and of rain. Pregnant sounds of coins slivering in the soda machine and of rain. I skirt the rain in my terry cloth, hold a tower of coins for soda. My head pregnant with sounds of deer and apples in the slivering machine. Grandma waits under clouds on the musty planked cottage porch. Grandma waits under clouds on the musty planked cottage porch, near the hummingbird sugar water in a white tennis outfit and Keds. Near the hummingbird sugar water in a white tennis outfit and Keds. The musty Keds and tennis white grandma outfit the cottage. Sugar waits under water in clouds on a planked porch. Hummingbird, near. Grandma in clouds of tennis white. Grandpa's outfit, terry cloth. I, water. The hummingbird with the octopus, bathing in the musty hold of summer rituals. Pregnant deer perform for my sugar and apples, I for coins and soda. At 6, wearing a fun suit under my skirt, Keds, hats in a tower. Near the planked cottage porch, slivering in the sun. My head, a time machine, waits on sounds of rain. And both of my brothers show up in this one. It's called Trigger. And some of you who knew my dad will recognize this artifact. Trigger. Growing up, I watched the tape turn yellow on the New Yorker cartoon hung on the fridge. Eventually so accustomed to the picture, I stopped looking at it. Under ambered strips, a man sat up in bed, clutching his stomach, his wife asleep beside him. His eyes shifted to the kitchen where an icebox said, The text read, ask not for whom the refrigerator hums. It hums for thee. Do you all remember this too? Those of you still alive? My brother who once dressed in capes and crowns, the other not then old enough to read. My stepmother, perhaps the one to cut it out and save it back in late November 1980. Or was it you, gone father, recognizing in yourself that wide awake man, always craving something in the night, your appetite so strong for life and all its delights? Maybe you chuckled over it together, stuck it there where it became not only image, but trigger, returning you to that morning of pie for breakfast after Thanksgiving, oilskin cloth printed with black cherries, pushing the magazine toward the one you love, anticipating familiar laughter. I didn't get it then, the allusion to the tolling bell, or how our minds run wild with all we want, enough to wake us up from sleeping. I only knew you knew something I didn't, and that made me feel young and green about the world, which I was. This next one is Lilac Sundays. This will be a familiar terrain for some of you as well. On weekends over the years, our family went to the annual flowering at the Arnold Arboretum, where panicles of blossoms in mid-May were at their height, bunches of corollas dripping from boughs in that sanctuary of trees. We'd spread our checked cloth and picnic in a cloud of sweetness and bees. That there could be an arboretum, that there could be that many different shades of purple. These outings showed me that and the names for birds and their calls, as other days we'd walk Mount Auburn Cemetery with binoculars and quartered peanut butter and jellies. That a cemetery could be a place for life, that we could go pioneering through a yard of graves and see beauty in the markers, that we could scan branches for flickering feathers, follow a dash of red or blue across the sky to find where it landed, waiting there with eyes trained on the greenery until it flew again. We took out the battered Peterson and went looking through its pages for what revealed itself in the air. This taught me patience, to look around and to try to name what was singing there. All right. This one's called Tidal Basin. That time I stood at the stove in your Dorchester Victorian, stirring cream of wheat, and I was well into high school, popping the pink oval of birth control, drinking too much Milwaukee's Best on the weekends, working at the Italian deli back home in Gloucester, where they let me leave with the leftover baguettes and slabs of Havarti with dill. And too often I got stoned to the point of paranoia, like that night my friends and I smoked in the garage of the Museum of Science in Boston before going to the planetarium, where my body forgot to breathe. And sometimes, if I couldn't decide between turnover or Danish on the bakery run in the mornings, I'd get both. And I was vaguely depressed, or explicitly so, notching callous boys on my proverbial belt, learning to navigate drunken donuts on ice in a borrowed hatchback, always freezing on some dock chosen for a makeout venue, or by a dying fire in the woods, or amidst the gravestones of strangers and their kin. And at the stove, with my back to you, I stirred the wooden spoon, lost in how the cereal congealed, and you told me that my butt looked big in no uncertain terms. And I was glad my face was turned to the wall, and I focused on the penguin salt and pepper shakers on the back of the stove, and on the silence that settled, a thickness in which time expanded, and I knew I'd never unhear your words. You must have worried about me, but why couldn't you have said that? You who sent me the postcards I still have of woodland animals picnicking, sending up bottle rockets, and going for country drives, addressed to my mother's house when I was too young to stay with you overnight. And once I could, family outings on Sundays, then half the summer, twilight walks looking for rabbits in the beech rose underbrush by those 8-inch high slats you called bunny fences. You brought me on boats shaped as swans in Boston's public garden, got me sports bars when the vendors walking the steps between seats at Fenway cried out, "Hey, ice cream here!" And you made me pose and look as if into the distance of my important life as I perched on the edge of the stage of the Elizabethan Theater at the Folger Library in DC. That same trip, we circled the tidal basin in a pedal boat for two under April vacation cherry blossoms. I was 14, my clothes all outfits picked to match. I feel so tender toward the two of us in that rented vessel, baby brother and stepmom at the rim, looking on through a storm of petals. Years later, when you said those words in the kitchen, did you feel sorry as soon as you did? And what hurt me more, that you were right or that you were disappointed in me? Did you love me a little less because I changed? Did I love you a little less after you said so? This poem is for tomorrow. My father had cancer that caused his lung to be removed, and then for near on 4 years, he lived after that in this time that we're all very grateful for now. And when the cancer came back, it was right at the beginning of November of 2012, and he died 7 weeks later. This was the trip that I went to see him after he said that his cancer had returned at the beginning of November. And he lived in Concord, so you'll recognize this place, those of you who know it. Veterans Day on Author's Ridge. Sun slips between coniferous branches, and under bronzy switches of fallen pine, the bones of Alcott, Thoreau, expired Ebenezer's, and Eliza's. Flags flicker atop mausoleums and along the winding paths. Brotherhood planes fly their noisy formations, and the neighbor across the street rakes his leaves. I envy the task, the way what he piles will compost into something smaller, how he can sort what has come undone. So we're now in the middle section of the book. I think I'm going to skip one that I was going to read. So I'll read 3 more. We're going to go to the, we're going to skip over the rest of that hard section, but go to the grieving section. This is a poem that I wrote in response when I was doing a project responding to Sylvia Plath poems. She has a poem called Daddy. And many of you probably know it. And she says in that poem, we're through. Daddy, daddy, we're through. So you'll hear a tiny bit of my response here. The Whale. Mine died when I hit middle age. He still young at 68. I'll never say we're through. He is that creature under the cold Atlantic blanket, migratory mammal, singing a complex song, large heart beating in time with mine, wide cetacean smile, throat pleats, fluke and fin. All that potential lamplight and winter warmth stored in his immortal bulk. No harvested baleen, no corset bone. He'll never stop his root, though sometimes he needs to breach, and once I dreamed he beached. I tried to drag him back to the surf where the salt could lick his wounds and he could open one eye to the sun. But that was a nightmare. The truth is in the Gulf Stream, dark shadow spouting, swimming with seals. My heaven would be studded with fathers. My father in his blue and white striped bathing suit, holding me by the ankles, my hair sweeping the Good Harbor sand. My father tossing quarters into the toll basket as we crossed the Tobin Bridge toward his house for the weekend. My father quizzing me on the singers of Motown radio tunes while we drive and on my times tables. My father stuffed into a student desk on parent night, defending my efforts to my algebra teacher. My father inhaling a joint, then passing it my way on the back steps of a fading purple Victorian in Dorchester. My father in a fisherman's sweater, holding my swaddled firstborn with a look on his face I'd never seen. My father reading her Frog and Toad and looking like Frog or Toad himself in his tweed jacket with patches on the elbows. My father reading a prayer to me and my beloved at our wedding, wearing seersucker, happy to bring God into the room. My father rendered speechless on a gurney, clutching my hand in an anonymous corner of Mass General that I won't forget the whiteness of. My father in the woods, placing stones on top of other stones, then back in the woods to see who's added to his cairns, then not in the woods at all, then in the woods everywhere, my father in the woods like stars in the ether, spangling everything in a wash of light. I'm going to close with a poem called Return to Great Meadows. Betsy Scholl, you're here and you wrote beautifully for this book. And this is a poem, I'll just show you that it has a caesura running through the center of the poem. And I worked on this with Betsy when I was a student at Vermont College. She helped me to find the shape of this poem, sort of like a river running through the center of the poem, and it closes the book. So thank you for that, Betsy. I'll never forget that. And my firstborn, who just showed up in that poem, is here listening in, and that means so much to me. Hi, Monica. Return to Great Meadows. At the gaping center of the marsh, dozers unearth the earth, upbraid invasive purple loosestrife. With choking stalks, these bog sirens trick the terrain with false beauty. Canada geese honk in tandem with low-flying planes from Hanscom Air Force Base. In the distance, a solitary loon. Closer, a scurry of chipmunks inhabits the reeds. The hollow, a screech owl once filled. Dragonflies attached end to end, pinwheels riding the wind. scattered stones under cattails, old cairns undone. Along the watchtower, silver corners strung with the projects of spiders. A single cardinal frets between two trees. Ruddy bird, flying heart in the bush, the hue of a berry stain on yesterday's apron, monthly blood seeped into a mattress, dusky burn of forsythia at the brink of fall, rusty bloom of feminine plumage, mateless without her scarlet twin. Is she looking for him? Does the wind tell her where the owl has gone? How long the geese will clog the rushes, how fast this winter will roll in? What can she tell us who treat these meadows like a labyrinth? Or is the lesson in the bird register chalked in the script of many hands, noting green heron, nuthatches, and a redwing? What are we meant to learn from the broken rosary hanging on the welcome map, from the found feather, from the way the binocular case snaps shut with worn-in ease, from the backs of benches bearing names of the dead, or from Peterson's dog-eared pages penciled with proof of life? Do we mostly want to know we have not been left? Pocketing the heart-shaped stones pried from where they settled, we dig incremental graves. With each removal in the taking of evidence, a soothing sort of theft. Thank you.
Mm. Oh my goodness. Rebecca, geez, just the way that you turn a line every time. And listen, I'm going to tell you when you kill me. You kill me when you look into the lens. You do that several times. You do one of these, and then you're like poetic turn, and you look at us. And I feel like you're in front of me, and it sends me. Thank you so much for giving us this book. It's such a gift. It truly is. If everyone in the reactions could please send some claps or send some celebratory party celebrations, please, because that was just so good. Please celebrate Rebecca Hart Olander for this book. It's absolutely, absolutely amazing. So now it seems like we have some time for Q&A. Hey, Kali, welcome back. And we are actually going to start, and Kali, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself because I'm going to love to hear your voice. We'll actually start. Oh, okay, perfect, good. With one of the questions from our social media coordinator, Tamara. So Kali and Rebecca, you both use stars and astronomy as images. How do these themes inform your writing and your process? Either or could take it first.
Will you go, Kali?
I read a lot of science fiction. So when I start talking about stars, it's like Star Trek, Star Wars, star this, star that. But that doesn't, it's sort of in the background from that. I don't write sci-fi poems. I have one. But I think, just the immense size of the universe is what gets into my poems, I think. Contemplating our little adventures here on Earth in that bigger context. I don't know. I'm not an astronomer by any means, or I can tell you a few of the old constellations, but that's about it. So.
Right. Thank you. Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, I think I turn to the sky for answers sometimes because I don't really have a religion. So that's one of the places, I've found answers in the garden. I found answers in the ether. I feel awe, when I look at the sky, especially a starry night. I'm wearing a moon necklace my sister-in-law gave me, and so I've been thinking about supermoon I read an amazing poem in Cindy Veach's book, just to shine the light on her for a second, that talks about the moon, even when it's um, partial, that it is never a fraction. Even when it's halved, it is always um, there, even though we can't see it. It's always complete. And that really resonated with me. So I'm going to remember that for a while. But yeah, I think stars have kind of been awesome for me in the literal meaning of that word since I was um, little, and kind of dream in a dreamy, I love the constellations kind of way. So I think, yeah, and there's something, the great mysteries. It makes you think of the great mysteries, and that's what poetry is for grappling with. So
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I'm always so curious about how folks could share the same things, but they get to it in different ways, right? And it also makes us realize that a lot of these different ways are kind of one and the same. It's starting to become either a buzzword or a cliche, but just the universality of it all, how it all just kind of blends into some sort of singularity. And thinking about that, there's a question from Susan. Could both of you talk about the evolution of your book? And I guess you could take that as an open-ended question, depending on how you want to take what the evolution of your book would actually look like.
Mine's pretty simple. It was simply the creative thesis for the end of my MFA program. So it started out there, and I added some poems and took out some poems. And Baron Wormser really shaped. Well, several people had their hands on it before you guys saw it, and then Baron did the final shaping of it into a book that made sense and had threads and things. But the evolution actually started with Betsy. When I took Betsy Scholl's class at USM, University of Southern Maine, I was just kind of on a lark. I was just needing something to do that I was bored. So I took her poetry class, and then I took it 4 more times, and she finally booted me out and told me I should go get an MFA. So that's how it all came together. But
That's excellent.
So yeah, Baron was part of my book's journey at the end of its life, and Betsy was part of it as well. So I love that we share that. Mine was at one point my creative thesis, but a lot of I did work with Betsy on that last poem that I read. But a lot of the poems I didn't bring to my advisors at my faculty mentors at Vermont College, because I had written so much of this book in the November that my dad was sick and dying. So they were kind of I started Vermont College that following summer. And so they had already happened. And I certainly have worked on them, but I didn't necessarily workshop them in that space very much. But I think some of the grieving poems those were happening at that time. So the journey of this book was, when I sent it to CavanKerry, it was in 4 sections. Now it's in 3. And I had the very wonderful spark of an idea from Joan and Gabe that this book should be more about my father. The first 2 sections were not about him at all. The 3rd section was the dying. The 4th section was the grief. And the first 2 sections were also very heavy, and I don't necessarily write light. And so they felt that what we needed in this book was some more of my father while he was alive, to show the relationship that the 2 of us had, to show him as a person walking through the world, so that when he's lost, you could feel that as well as alongside me feeling it. So it was like an introducing of him to the reader, and that really resonated with me. So this book has the right home. It had the right editors to read it and notice that. And they just said, if you want to have a home with us, we see it this way, but it's your book. So that was also a really empowering thing to hear. And then
Hmm.
I have to admit, I sort of thought they were going to do this for me, like help me figure out what Gabe, if you're out there. But no, it was like, okay, you figure it out, like go and do your homework and rework this book and see if what you can do along those lines. And that was really scary. Because of course I wanted, I wanted them to say yes in the end. Um, but also it meant I had to write some poems for the book.
Right, right.
So that was exciting, but
Yeah.
But
very
it
challenging.
wouldn't have been your book if we had tried to step in. We knew it was something you were more than capable of doing, and that if it was going to come from anyone, it would be you. And we're so glad that it did.
I mean, just as a good parent should, you let me walk on my own. It was it was really good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and Rebecca, I'd like you to unpack that a little more because Gabe did mention, and Gabe has a good handle on all of these manuscripts. He reads them over and over again before publication. He's there every step of the way, so we really thank him for that. And he does mention how your poems are so cinematic and detailed, and it really doesn't just have to rely on that source of imagery, but there's a certain breadth and timbre in which you craft your poems. So. I'm interested in that challenge and the importance of you getting that material back after we said, okay, we would like it under these conditions. We would like you to write into this a little bit. So now you were at that challenge of capturing those memories in your poetry. And what was that like?
Well, I went back to not the drawing board exactly, but I went back to older work, like that Adirondack poem I had written a long time ago, but it was, rooted in an experience in a place that I shared with my dad. So I sort of poured over everything to see like, where is there anything that I can, use? And then I have to say so then I wrote a couple of things. There's a poem called Origins, which was just kind of like um, a listing poem of where the different places and objects and things like where my father came from. One of the poems was written for the book, and that came out of wrestling in the editing process with Barron, who didn't make me wrestle with him all that much, but there was one poem that was a slippery poem called College Cathexis, and it was not called that when I sent it in. I think it was called Molten. And that was a poem in which I was trying to wrestle with kind of dabbling with hating my father in college. There was a whole feeling that I had, like a lot of my girlfriends were really angry at the patriarchy, as we all still are. But it was like the birth of our feminism. And that seemed to come for some of my girlfriends with hating their dads. And so I was kind of my poem became in the book that I was sort of trying to muster this, and that it kind of didn't take. So even the poem that I read to you, like that's, one of the worst things that I had happened between us. And that's not so bad. What he said to me in the kitchen at the stove, like, of course it's this small little thing. And I think it just hurt because it's in such contrast to how else he was and how, well, anyway, that's the other poem. But I struggled with that poem about college, and it has me in that other poem, which I didn't read tonight, sort of stomping around in my dorm room. And I was thinking, like, what was I stomping around in my dorm room about? And one of the things was that my dad, I had to at one point ask him to hug me more. So I grew up with mostly at my mom's house with a really, really loving mom, very physical, and hugged me and told me she loved me. And but my father was a little more hands off, and to me that was cold, and it made me question his affection for me. And I got up the guts to ask him, could you hug me more? And he did. And I think what I was storming around about in college was I had to ask my dad to hug me more. Like, But then as we were editing this book, it's like, but the truth is he responded to that. So he started hugging me more. So who does that? Like he rose to that occasion. He like grew as a dad, and listened and did that for me. So I ended up
That's
writing a
beautiful.
whole new poem. This is getting back to your question. I wrote a whole new poem for the book about that. It's called My Aesop. And that came out of the experience of trying to think of what it was I might have been stomping around about. So I'm just very grateful for the whole editing process, the trajectory that it went on, and how that poem came into my life just at the last minute, right before the book was made.
Right, right. Yeah, Rebecca, wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so Janet Alves, and this is a testament to how much you actually put into this book too, and Kali, I'm tagging you in here as well. So Janet Alves said, "I'm so moved, Becky, by your courage, grace, and stunning poetic skill. I'm truly moved by all three readings. Kali, Sarah, thank you all for the many gorgeous lines and connections. I felt deeply engaged the entire time, and thank you, CavanKerry. And we thank you, Janet, for being here with us." So I'm curious. So both of you are talking about the illness of loved ones, and you're talking about family, in these pieces, essentially your friends or close people. So Lisa Ortiz asks, and I'll give this to Kali also. It is difficult to write explicitly about those around you. Did you show the poems to your siblings or your loved ones before some of them were in the book? And did you ever feel like you were editing poems for your family or your loved ones?
Family is such a my parents, my mother had developed a massive brain tumor when I was 20. 3 years after that, my father died of a massive heart attack very suddenly. So I was 24 at that point. And that was really in many ways, the end of my birth family. I have an much older brother and a much older sister. And then, so there was 15 years of alcoholism after all of that. And then I came out as gay. And when I fell in love with Paula, I inherited another family that I'm very close to. It's the opposite experience of my original family, who are still around. My brother and sister, my brother just turned 91.
Wow.
And my sister's 88. So, and they're not really in my life, and they haven't been in my life for many years in any sort of, consistent way, I guess. But Paula's oldest son and his wife and their two adopted sons from Russia, actually, are the family that I consider my family. I see them at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I see them. Paula and I went. My son and I went to see the Eternals this week at the movie, which is not as good as I wanted it to be. But so it's just a very complex. I don't know what to say about family. So I don't write a lot about them. I have a number of poems about my dad because I've been trying to figure out that relationship for years. 2 poems about my mom because she became someone else when she had the brain tumor. So I don't really remember her as the person she started out to be. And I haven't written poems about my brother and sister. I have written poems about Paul, my stepson or son-in-law, and that side of the family, and my grandsons. And and just, as they bubble up now and then as poems, but
Mhm.
it's not really any concentrated thing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Kali. There's so much when we're having these conversations, especially about poems, and we're talking about that internal being. There's so much to invent and recreate in what we identify as what family actually is, right? We can expand upon that. And it seems like it seems like those that are close to you that are family are the ones that you are truly writing about and are listening and are receiving. So it's really excellent for one to know you, to hear this during this reading, and to have CavanKerry help support you with some of this. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Rebecca?
Well, so you closed with the short answer, Lisa, is yes. Is it difficult? Yes. But I was really trying to listen to my friend, so I wasn't forming an answer in my head. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You closed with, it's not really concentrated. This is concentrated. This is family stuff, and it's difficult terrain. It is not easy to navigate to. Yeah, I am an uncertain acrobat swinging through this as gracefully as I can. I mean, my family has been really supportive. I did not walk this journey alone. My dad had a really long marriage to my stepmom. I have two brothers that came out of that marriage who I'm really close to, and I'm close to her. So we walked through the fire together, the Mass General fire. And I'm sharing really things that happened to me, to him, but happened to us. And so I'm doing sort of the best that I can to do that respectfully, and to not to share space sort of in my head alongside of putting these out into the world. I do some things in this book, like in one poem I speak in my dad's voice, like I inhabit that experience. I talk about hospital room moments that are, where just the four of us were there sometimes. And I think I might not have written about those if I wasn't working on a writing a poem every day project in that November. And it had me writing things that I might have been not brave enough to write,
Yeah.
because I might have been worried about that editing piece, or just because it was horrible. It's not easy to walk through the very end of someone's life. It was also a gift and a huge honor, to be able to be there and stand together and go through that. So, I mean, yeah, there are some poems that aren't in the book, and the book is incomplete. That's the other thing is, you might edit things out, but then also, like, this isn't all of my dad, and that sort of soothed me as I was writing. Like, this can't hold everything that he was. I'm not trying to. I just sort of let myself off the hook for that. Trying to have this be, it's not his memoir, or it's obviously not his memoir, but it's not his biography. It's a picture right now of what I made so far, of a really missable man, who wasn't only special to me.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. This work that we do is like literally the work, right? Like there's so much of ourselves and pieces of our soul that goes into these books, just even poem to poem. And then when you take a look at it collectively, it's just like, wow, right? Just to see all of these different emotions here.
Can I actually just say one more thing?
Of course.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just one more thing. I want to share. I'm thinking about my stepmother. Her name is Christopher Jane Corkery, and she is also a poet. And she had a book that was published last fall It's called Love Took the Words, and it's her second book. And some of you know her who are here in the room. And that really helped me to have her book come first because she doesn't write the way I do, and I don't write the way that she does, in terms of, well, just in lots of ways, but her work is so beautiful and admirable and strong. And of course, a book that came out last year has some poems that are about the same man. And so that meant a lot to me, that she sort of had the first poetic say where her book came out. And because she was the primary person in his life, and him and hers. So anyway, I wanted to give a shout out to her book, really, because she does that very gracefully in her book.
Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. I didn't even notice that we've been talking for such a long time. It's actually 8:30. It's 8:30, but and this is a testament to Rebecca at the beginning. I think before we even hopped on, our crazy last time at AWP before everything happened. I love these readings because they are pieces of that. They are pieces of that unity. They are pieces of that community. And I thank you all so much for hanging out with us, the audience, this evening, as well as Rebecca and Kali for being so gracious and giving with your work. If you want a piece of Kali and Rebecca and Sarah, you can still secure these books with Rebecca Hart Olander as the coupon code. So RHO 1110. And you can save 25% off on 3 of these books. And you can also receive this gift and continue to receive this gift. I love that picture, Kali. I wonder where you got it from. I gotta get hooked up to the marketing and communications director that got that picture together.
Yes.
Gotta give him a raise. That looks great.
Yeah, that's a great photo. I love that one.
Thank you. Okay, so just to end, I'm gonna let everyone come on. Before I let everyone come on, just if you can, I'd like ending these with this question sometimes, and try to make it short, maybe a sentence or two. Rebecca and Kali, what is one thing you wish you would have told your early career writer? Like what was that one thing you wish you would have told yourself in your 20s about writing?
Don't pay attention to Dr. Abernathy.
Wow, I don't even, that Star Trek?
No.
I
The
don't,
head of the PE department at University of Washington.
wow, awesome.
It's the reason I stopped writing for 30, 40 years.
Wow.
Oh, not awesome.
No. But
Wow.
I got it.
Wow.
I got her back.
Good.
Need another master's degree. So
Yeah.
I have a
love the
master's in
answers that they
phys ed.
That's amazing. I love the answers that say, don't pay attention to blank, fill in the blank. Those are always the most important. Just marching to your own drum, taking your own path. Thank you, Kali. Rebecca.
Wow, I wish I had a ready, like a Mad Libs. don't pay attention. I guess it took me a long time to be comfortable with not writing all the time. Not starting to like beat myself up and say, oh, you're not a writer if you don't write every day, or if you don't get up at 5, like, whatever writer does that every single morning. I found my own way of being a writer, and I'm really roller coastery with it. And it comes, for me a lot during the summer and January between semesters because I teach. And I've just kind of made peace with that I need to percolate. Or that I have to percolate. And so I get to percolate and hibernate. And I've just kind of made peace with that. And I used to give myself a harder time, but it's like, that who does that help? That doesn't help anybody. There's not one way to be a writer. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. There's not one way. So yeah, do it your own way. Get to writing the way you need to get to writing. Thank you so much, you wonderful, wonderful beings. I hope you all have an excellent night. Everyone, you can unmute. Participants, come on. Say whatever you want to say to us. That's nice. That's nice. And just clap it up, say your goodbyes, and you are free for the rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Love
Beautiful
you.
evening.
Fantastic. Just
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you, Susan.
Fabulous. Congratulations.
Monica.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you, Patrick and Scott. Oh, my friend. Hi, Betsy. Thank you, Betsy.
Hey, Betsy.
Hey.